Hey, everybody. Welcome back to So Does It Matter and our first one on one interview podcast of the year. It's very appropriate that our kickoff podcast interview is with our friend Katy Grimes of the California Globe, because last year, when I kicked off this interview series, which resulted in about 20 interviews, Katy was our first interview then. And with the new year upon us, with everything going on, I'm very pleased to welcome Katy back. Welcome, Katy.
Thanks, John. It's good to kick off the new year with you.
Yeah, well, we're going to see if we can get through this without laughing too much. We're going to have some somber stuff to talk about here in a minute, but I have to do this. This is people know about this. This is where I go to ChatGPT and I say, "Hey, look, I'm introducing Katy. Give me an introduction." So here's what ChatGPT says, and understand, for those of you who think they're going to beat her up, ChatGPT has figured out I'm a conservative with a conservative website, so kind of knows what it's doing. So today I am joined by Katy Grimes, the editor-in-chief of the California Globe, one of the most influential independent outlets covering California politics. Katy has spent years reporting on Sacramento, state agencies, ballot measures, and the political class, often breaking stories or asking questions the legacy media either overlooks or avoids. Under her editorial leadership, the California Globe has become essential reading for anyone who wants serious and candid conversation, unfiltered coverage of how California government actually operates. She brings a deep institutional knowledge, a willingness to challenge entrenched power, and a clear understanding of how decisions made in Sacramento affect the people across the state. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Katy, and with that, I will add, which they didn't add, that I'm always prideful that Katy, among other places, cut her teeth as a state capitol correspondent for the Flash Report. And so
Yes.
I got to work with her directly. And now we're going to talk about some stuff going on. So I'm about to buzzkill the whole mood. So we're recording this mid morning on January 6th. You're watching it tomorrow, which is now today, January 7th. But Katy and I are both still reeling over the news that greeted us this morning of the passing of our friend Congressman Doug LaMalfa. It's really tragic. By now, everyone's heard about it. Doug was 65 years old, so awfully young to lose somebody. He had some health issues come up very unexpectedly that resulted in emergency surgery that was not successful. And so our hearts, I speak on behalf of Katy and I, that our hearts
Yes.
go out to Jill and the family and all of his family and friends and his staff who were his extended family. And
Yeah.
it's just really sad. So Katy, I think we probably ought to talk about Doug, and then maybe
Yeah.
we can talk a little bit about the political implications of this, which is almost seems too soon, but it's
I
not too
know.
soon because everyone else is talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. The headlines all read the same today. It's frustrating, but I have very, very fond memories of Doug LaMalfa. It was very enjoyable to cover him when he was in the California legislature and see him, standing there in the Senate, larger than life, because I'm five
Truly.
four and he was what, 6'5" or something.
Yeah, really
So, yeah, I
tall.
was always looking up to him, but he was a
I always
delight
used to tell
because
him, "You should have played basketball." He'd say, "That's a lot of work."
yeah, no kidding. What I always appreciated about him is what you see is what you get. And he didn't do on the record, off the record discussions. Whatever he said was on the record. And I felt like he always spoke and legislated from his heart. One of my funniest memories was when he was a state senator and he introduced a bill so that anyone who wants to pay more taxes in California could just voluntarily do it right on their franchise tax board form. And it was, obviously meant to be mocking of the Democrats who were constantly talking about how everybody needed to pay more taxes. And then when they would speak on the record on the assembly or senate floor, it's like, well, I would pay more taxes if it was easy. And so then Senator LaMalfa tried to make it easy for them to do so.
Yeah, I got so many memories, and I mean, those will be forthcoming. But I was on the phone this morning with our mutual friend, Joel Anderson.
Yes.
Joel, of course, is a San Diego supervisor now, but he served in the Assembly and the Senate with Doug. They kind of had a very concurrent career until Congressman Herger decided suddenly to retire in, I think it was 2013 or so.
Yeah.
And Doug had the chance to move on to the big leagues and leave
Yeah.
Joel behind. But Joel and I were chatting about Doug possibly being the most frugal member of the legislature. I remember I would go up there. It was the heydays of coverage of Schwarzenegger and all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
and I would be up in Sacramento quite frequently. They joked about me being the 41st senator because I was just always up there all the time,
Mhm.
and so we'd grab Mark Weiland, also thrifty, and we'd go out in search of food. And anytime I would suggest a restaurant, all three of them, LaMalfa, Weiland, Anderson, would look at me, and Anderson would always be the first one to say, "You don't know what you're talking about, John. All the food here is free." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah." And that's right. We would go out, either Doug or Mark or Joel would have the list of what members of the legislature were having receptions. And off we would go. And let me tell you, you want to talk about bipartisan cooperation in Sacramento. It did not matter if the reception was being held to elect a Democrat or a Republican. As a matter of fact, the first filter was not the who, it was the where. Like, what food did you really want to eat? Because invariably, and there were half a dozen key spots around the Capitol, and
Yeah.
somebody was having something every night. And so we would go. And I remember once we were at a reception, I think it was for Mark Leno, the senator from San
Mhm.
Francisco, who was battier than crazy. And we're eating the food. And Doug, I remember him looking up because Leno's speaking to the group. And of course, we're not interested in what he's saying. We're interested in eating. And Doug just looks up and says, "That guy is crazy. But boy, this food is great." So
One of the perks.
yeah, one of the perks. But of course, Doug, putting all his 6'5" big stature and his big cowboy hats aside, this is somebody who had a genuine warmth, a genuine care for people. He had a genuine care for the North State that he loved, and he loved our country, loved our country, loved our state. And I think if he had a secret superpower that I was going to ascribe to him, and I know I'm taking over your interview,
All right.
but Doug had policy chops, but didn't like to let people know, right?
Uh-huh.
And so he'd always go into conversations kind of trying to come off as kind of like that rice farmer from Northern California appearance.
Or
This is a guy who was
Columbo-esque.
very successful in business and was
Yeah.
successful in the legislature because he knew his stuff. And it was really kind of fun to watch him operate and do things.
Yeah, it very much. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I said kind of Columbo-esque. He'd kind of play the yuck, 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 fill me in on what's really happening here, and then surprise you with his actual knowledge.
Right. Exactly. Maybe you could take a first pass. What are the political implications here, Katie, of Doug suddenly being gone?
Well,
What happens
yeah.
now?
As I said, every
And I almost hate
headline.
to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I said, as every headline this morning read, shrinking the Republican majority in Congress. So, how skinny is it? How serious is it? There's going to be a special election, which Governor Newsom has to call. So,
You could be sure he will call that whatever the window period is, he will
yep,
wait as long as possible
yeah,
because
the
he'll
final
want to
day.
deprive the Republicans of having that additional vote. I seem to recall that yesterday MGT was her Marjorie MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene's resigned yesterday as well, was her last day in Congress.
Yeah,
So Republicans may be down to a 1 or 2 vote majority if you count Congressman Massey from Kentucky, who doesn't like to vote for anything.
right.
So it's gonna be a tough sledding to get those majority votes.
Yeah, it will. It's going to take some some very clever leadership, very good behind the scenes working. Um,
Yeah, and there's gonna be
it's
there you don't get to be the congressman who can't make it because you have to be at your nephew's bar mitzvah,
correct.
or, there's a wedding, or God forbid you have the flu. Well,
Yeah.
they're gonna roll you in. So,
Well,
uh
that's what the Democrats do with their members, so it's time we do it as well.
You're gonna see, I think one of the functions for the next few months especially will be fewer vote days, right? Because they're gonna need to say, "Okay, we got all this stuff going on, and we're gonna cram it all into Thursday.
Mhm.
Everyone has to be here Thursday."
Yeah,
And it's
I
gonna
think you're
kinda
right.
be like that. So, I think the other thing that's kind of interesting here is, as we all know, Prop 50 redrew all these House lines.
Yes.
And in this particular area, we have, I'll use the word scoundrel, which might almost be too nice for Mike McGuire. I got baseball in the brain all the time. So Mike McGuire is the state senator who hails from Sonoma County,
Yeah.
who until up and through the adoption of the sending Prop 50 to the ballot was the state Senate president. Lord, oh Lord, coincidence of coincidences, the lines that were put forward to the voters drew a brand new, safe Democrat state Senate seat for McGuire that was a seat that Congressman LaMalfa was going to run in anyway, despite that it went from being a double-digit Trump winning seat last go around to now, if you look at the new district, it had a double-digit win for Harris.
Yeah, I know.
And
You can't make this stuff up. It's
yeah,
the gerrymandering that went on with Prop 50 is to say it's shameless doesn't even cover it.
yeah.
But yeah, this is
And part of the problem, lightning can strike me down now because I don't know McGuire, but anybody who's willing to do the kind of cynical play that he did, that the legislature did on Prop 50, I can't help but thinking that he and his buddies are high-fiving this morning. I mean,
oh yeah.
nobody's applauding that somebody has died, but his life, was just that much easier with Doug out of the way.
Mhm.
Oh, it's really sad. Somebody's gonna
It
say I'm a heartless bastard for saying that, but, you know
no, it's actually what they did was heartless and it was shameless. And unfortunately, Doug LaMalfa's untimely passing, as you say, just makes his life better, which is sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, so I would not be surprised. I mean, so we had an interesting scenario not too long ago where Congressman Devin Nunes out of the Central
Mhm.
Valley kinda up and resigned from Congress to go run Truth Social as a part of the
Yes.
Trump network, and that created an immediate special election in a seat that was disappearing because
Yeah.
of the actual end of the decade redistricting. Some of our more astute political, watchers will recall that they drafted, former Assembly Republican leader Connie Conway, who came out of retirement, ran for the seat, and served for a very epically short period of time
Yeah.
and then was out. And we're kind of looking at the same scenario now because this special election to fill Doug's seat will be held on the old lines, so a very safe Republican. So
Right.
I wouldn't, I mean, right out the gate, I just have to assume that James Gallagher probably gets drafted
Yes.
and jumps in and runs to fill out the remainder of that term.
Yeah.
I
That would
don't
be
know
my
if that
guess.
will happen, but I think he's the most likely person to
Mhm.
do it, in which
Yeah.
case he will be able to call up Connie Conway and say, "You thought you had a short tenure in Congress. Mine's even shorter than yours was."
Yeah. No
It's
kidding.
not like he's fulfilling like, his vote is not the decision maker, I wish, in the state assembly.
Yeah.
And,
I
so
know.
and I do think that they're gonna wanna have a reliable conservative person
Yes.
sitting in that seat. So I could be wrong, and I guess you could call that a prediction, but
It's a good January prediction. I think it's probably, it's an educated prediction.
yeah, so, hey, so we'll put a pin in that. I think there's gonna be a lot
Okay.
more conversations about Doug
Yeah.
and his passing, but there's some breaking news today out of the Trump
Yes.
administration. Of course, there's breaking news out of the Trump administration every day. This news
10
is
times a
not
day.
as the this this is not at the same level of breaking news as we had over the weekend with the Trump
No.
administration and
Not the
going
same
into
level.
Venezuela and extracting, the president of the country. But why don't
Wow.
you talk about it? Because this is California news, so why don't you tell us
Yeah,
what it is?
this is interesting. So, as you know, I've been writing a lot about California's fraud from I broke the state auditor's report story that there were 8 state agencies now labeled high risk, totaling $76 billion in fraud. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just with those 8 state agencies. Now, today, we see on Truth Social that President Trump announced that the DOJ is looking into California's fraud. So, if I could sing a Disney song right now about wishes coming true, that would be it. This is very, very good news because so much of our money, of course, that goes into our budget comes from the federal government. So they have every right to look at this fraud.
Well,
I'm
I mean, look,
thinking,
they took a
yeah,
look at they looked at all the I don't know if fraudulent is the right word. I don't know if it's a fraud if you actually tell people what you're doing, but the wasteful spending with the high speed rail resulted in yanking all that money. Of course, you can't unspend the wasted money, but I think part of what we have going on here is there is no adult supervision in Sacramento. It's
that
the
is
fox is
correct.
guarding the hen house, right? It's not like the state
Yeah.
legislature is overseeing the governor. It's not like the governor is any kind of break on the state legislature. And as we've seen in multiple rulings, the most recent of which was the refusal of the state Supreme Court to even consider arguments about the
Yes.
problems with Prop 50, the judiciary in California is also not sitting as any kind of safeguard about what's going on in Sacramento. So literally, there's that old saying that absolute power corrupts Absolutely. And so we have rampant corruption and fraud and
Yes.
abuse coming out of Sacramento where, publicly to the cameras, oh, we have all these great causes that are important that we need to fund. But right underneath that is all of the corruption and the wealth redistribution, and the money comes in and the money goes out to the preferred vendors. It goes out in contracts. It goes to hire people. It's awful. And so you're right. This is great news that the Trump administration is going to come in and audit where those federal funds go. And by the way, they can audit in an awful lot of places because this federal money, it flows through to the state and to so many places. And I remember right after the Palisades fire and the Altadena fires, there were some calls for, okay, if money is going to come in from the federal government to help with the fire relief, there's going to need to be somebody from the federal government, which there is, watching and overseeing how that money is spent. I suspect by the time the Trump administration is done looking at this, they're going to need to appoint somebody that oversees all federal money coming into California for
Yeah.
every single program and for every single use because of the level of corruption that is taking place.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we can start with Medicaid funding, which in California is Medi-Cal. Once Governor Newsom opened up Medi-Cal spending to all illegal aliens, talk about no accountability. Nobody knows where the money went. And then he declared the program insolvent. So that's a huge one. The other one is all of the federal homeless spending money. People keep using the number of the missing $24 billion. The legislative analysts upped it to $37 billion. And that's just what they admitted several months ago. That was with all these newly created non-governmental organizations and nonprofits, and, money just flowed like it was a river of gold.
Well,
Between
and
those.
I
Yeah.
I think I think it's gonna make what happened in Minnesota look like child's play, and
Yes,
of course, that's already cost Tim Walz his career. He's announced his retirement, and I think these are gonna be big problems for the ersatz president who sits in our governor's mansion
they are.
because, this is all gonna be reflective on him. He's been in office for a long time. Maybe this is a good transition point, to talk a little bit about him, but well, let me make a final point on this investigation that's gonna be done by the federal government, because I talk to an awful lot of people who want to blame incompetence and bureaucracy, and I suppose that
Yeah,
could be the case, but I think
it's there.
what's more likely is I think this is purposeful fraud. I
Mhm.
think to the extent that there are not enough safeguards, there aren't enough safeguards because those safeguards would make it inconvenient to slide money to the non-government organizations, to the contractors, to all of the people who are benefiting. And I would say this: if you're a federal investigator watching this program right now, if you want a roadmap on where to look for some of this untoward corruption, go look at who is writing checks to the California Democrat Party, to the leadership PACs of the legislature, to the governor's recall committee, the governor's Prop 50 committee.
Mhm.
Go look at the behested payments that are being made. Katie's covered a lot about those. The behested payments being made that help fund the governor's personal life, right?
Yes,
Where that money is coming from, those are people with hands in the cookie jar.
of course.
And
It's a
so
it's a it's an easy investment for them. What they get in return is fabulous. So, yeah, the behested payments are disgusting. Just for the money that's run through his wife's so-called charity. It's this bottomless pit, John, and it's, as you say, we often just try not to assign malice to government waste, except that because of so much bureaucracy and incompetency. But yes, this time there is malice. And they learned during COVID that all you have to do is lift the guardrails of an agency that handles a lot of money, the way the EDD did, our unemployment agency, and all that fraud, the $31 billion that we know of that, Scott Peterson got while sitting on death row, along with other, state prisoners, Russian bots. I mean, it went everywhere. Yeah, there's malice, believe me.
all right, so let's pivot to the state capitol. The end of the year came and went. If people haven't read your list of horrible bills that came out of there, they should definitely do that. There's more, right? You can only put so much in a quick column on a website, right? You could write, we need the Festivus book like Rand Paul does for the federal government, for the state
Yeah,
government.
definitely.
But so the legislature returns, I believe, today.
Yes.
And so what are we looking at, Katie? What's going on?
Well, I don't think they've learned anything other than how to ramp up their spending via their arrogance and, and who knows how much corruption's in the legislature. I just think you're going to see more of the same. You're going to see more ridiculous, unnecessary bills, no focus on what the people of California need, no focus on the fraud, the waste, the abuse. They're going to ignore that. And, they've talked about the billionaire tax. They're trying to increase income taxes on us, the middle class. It's more punitive bills that we're going to see coming at us this year. And don't expect Governor Newsom to act as any sort of goalie against it.
I kind of view these. There's two kinds of years in the legislature. When the money is flowing, when there's
Hmm.
lots of money available, you tend to see a lot of outrageous spending.
Yeah,
And
right.
then when you have years like this one where the money is tighter, sure, you still have
Hmm.
outrageous spending because they're not what they tend to do is, well, we're going to go ahead and keep the funding for illegal alien healthcare, but we'll
Right.
cut the funding to fire prevention and road. Because then they come
Exactly.
back and they justify tax increases by saying, we need more money for roads. We need more money
Right.
to fight fires because they are not willing to cut that very aggressive, progressive social spending program that they love so much, nor can they certainly cut any of the programs that are feeding the corruption network that we've talked about, which would include
Exactly.
they have to give the pay raises to the employees because the employee unions contributed to Prop 50, right? All that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. The
But then
payola.
what we'll see more of this year is there tends to be more of a leaning into really bad, jacked up policy. So
Yes.
I'm looking for them because they can't focus on how to pay for more stuff, really. They're gonna be
Hmm.
focused on how to jack up more stuff by passing more insane laws that will
Yes.
further erode freedom and liberty for the people of California and give
Hmm.
more power to the bureaucracy. And literally at a time where in the country, we're seeing a significant shift away from progressivism, certainly in America, maybe not in New York City proper, but you know, at a
Yeah.
time when we're seeing those kinds of shift, they will double down on batshit crazy. That's what they will do.
And they are. They are most definitely. We've seen how they've reacted to the federal government announcing, frankly, ordering them to cut the DEI policies in public education and public employment. We've seen them doubling down on, the boys and girls sports and bathrooms. We've seen Gavin Newsom doubling down on running his own vaccine program in the state when the federal government is saying, whoa, Nelly, we need to cut a lot of why do kids need 80 vaccines? So, I mean, they treat California as though it's some sort of sovereign nation, except they want all the funding from the federal government. So it's, yeah, you say batshit crazy is it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I guess the projected budget deficit is upwards of $20 billion now.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And we
think
don't
it's
know that
higher.
and that's all pretty cooked, right? There's
Yeah.
there's actually much more.
Yes.
And this already, I don't know how much more they can use accounting gimmicks like let's hold off the last payroll check of the year until the next day and the next day of the fiscal year. And then we've quote unquote cut spending. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. And if I were a Californian, my biggest fear would be that given that our state constitution provides that a two-thirds vote of the legislature can raise your taxes. Look for the legislature to not be so patient as to wait for ballot measures to increase taxes.
Correct. But yeah,
Look
they
for the
find other ways.
they will find new fees, they will find new loopholes to close, all of which are generating more money again so that they can continue to fund outrageous programs,
Exactly.
right? Well, let's talk about Gavin Newsom a bit. What do you think the year looks like for him, Katie?
I don't think it's going to be a good year for Gavin Newsom. As we just quickly touched on, Governor Tim Walz pretty much forced to resign in shame, at minimum having ignored the fraud in the state, at the maximum been a part of it. I think Gavin Newsom's going to find himself in a similar position in that he will be blamed for the fraud in our state. So I think this
Well, I mean, as he
DOJ.
should be. It's not like he's in
Yes,
the
he should.
first year of his governorship. He's entering year
No,
number 8. So,
exactly.
he owns
Yeah.
it all.
Exactly. So I think that's going to be, you're going to see him lashing out more. You're going to see his communications team getting more outrageous on X and other social media platforms. It's going to be entertaining. It's also going to be cringy It's going to be a cringy year.
Yeah, and I think that what will be interesting for those of us closely following politics is that you've got this extraordinarily unimpressive, unremarkable group of people all seeking to succeed him. And
Yeah,
at some point, you're going to start to see some of these candidates try to break loose by actually offering criticisms of what he's done because he's really whichever one of these people ends up in the governor's mansion is getting a big enormous turd left on the desk, right? They're
big
inheriting
time.
all of this stuff, and they're going to
Yeah.
be constantly asked about the fraud and the abuse and the waste and all this stuff, and
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've already seen some of it. Ro Khanna, the congressman from the South Bay of San Francisco, has already been vocally critical of Newsom and the fraud issues. But look for more of it, and then, at the end of the day, look for those public employee unions in California, starting, of course, with the California Teachers Association and
Yes.
SEIU 1000, but there's plenty more. Look for them to focus on picking a candidate to elevate in that field because they only have one thing that they want, which is to continue the corruption, continue the pay for play, continue the
Hmm.
we'll take care of your political elections, you take care of our raises, you take care of
Hmm.
our bonuses, you take care of our increase in benefits.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens. We've got, I think, last I counted, over a dozen candidates now running, three Republicans at least. Actually,
Hmm.
if you want to major candidates, it's probably two and a half, right? You got Steve Hilton and you've got Chad Bianco both running as very established candidates.
Yes.
John Slavitt, who we know, is
Hmm.
kind of trying to jump in. It remains to be seen whether or not he can join them at that kind of top tier level. He's going to have his make or break month or two here. And then, we've just got these 9 or 10 Democrats who,
Yeah.
I mean, when Katie Porter stands out, you've got a big, big problem. And she's crazy. And she stands out because she's raising millions of dollars from her
Yes.
small donor base because her friend Elizabeth Warren has gifted her so many donors, friend and
But
mentor.
I think it shows you, I mean, so Eric Swalwell of all people is also raising, millions of dollars. And I think it shows you when you combine what you just described as the California Teachers Association and the SEIU pretty much handpicking which Democrat will be their candidate, it shows you that all they really want is a barking seal who will do what they want. So whoever that is, it's your best guess. If Katie Porter or Eric Swalwell are the choices, talk about another cringy year.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, Bonta, does he run for reelection or does he run for governor?
I don't have a read on that one yet. I know he's ambitious, of course. What do you
I think
think?
he would be the number one choice of the unions if he were to get in. They love proven commodities, and he has done
Hmm.
everything they have ever wanted. He's their
That's true.
lackey. So we'll know. We'll know soon
Wow.
enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out my you could decide if you wanna lay out a prediction or not, but you already know mine because I told you before the show. Here's my
Okay.
edgy prediction for 2026. Voter ID Initiative, which has already gathered over 1,000,000 signatures for qualification and is very popular, is going to announce very soon that it has the signatures that it needs to go before the voters. And my edgy prediction, Gavin Newsom will endorse the measure. And
Wow.
it will be controversial because he has opposed this sort of policy in the past. It will be controversial because a lot of Democrats will hate it, but this
Hmm.
is right up his alley while he will continue to sign laws all year for his progressive left. He looks for these hanging issues where
Yeah.
he can grab something and try to be a populist on the edge. And what he's going to say to his friends is this thing's going to pass with 3/4 of the vote anyways. And
Hmm.
he's gonna tell all the left, "You don't wanna piss me off because you want me signing all your bills. You want me funding your program, so you're gonna give me a pass." While I endorse this voter ID initiative and talk about how it's really a good idea. Watch. You wait, we'll see what happens, but that's my prediction. So,
I think that's actually pretty good, John, because it's reminiscent of Jerry Brown embracing Proposition 13 back in 1978. He's
100%.
he was against it until he saw it was going to pass, and then he realized, rut-row, better jump on this one.
Exactly. Hey, with that, we've rambled on for quite some time, and I know you got to get on that breaking story with Trump and fraud. I know you said Megan on your team's working on it,
Yes.
but I'm sure that in between her and a published story is an editor. So we're gonna let you get to that, and we're gonna spend a little bit more time. thinking about our friend Doug and his
Yes.
family and how sad that is. And for all of you out there, I hope that you've enjoyed our very first one-on-one interview of the year. Katy, I suspect we're not going to get through 2026 without having you back again. You're a
I
fan
sus-
favorite. You're a John favorite. So thank you
Aw.
very much. And everybody out there, keep safe and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, John.